Imagine the one person you trusted standing before a king and choosing to destroy you. This is not just a story about jealousy, it is a story about favoritism, betrayal, and truth that refuse to die. Stay with us, watch to the end, because the same mouth that lied will be forced to confess.
In a quiet part of Nigeria, far from the noise of big cities and tall buildings, there was a small village where life moved according to the sun. When the sun rose, work began. When it set, bodies rested, but worries never truly slept. The houses were built with mud walls and zinc roofs, standing close to one another as if they leaned on each other for strength. Narrow footpaths ran between compounds, and every morning, the sound of roosters and women's voices filled the air. In this village lived a woman named Mary. Mary was known in the market as a rice and beans seller. Every market day, she arrived early, spreading her mat, arranging her bowls, calling out to customers with a practiced voice. Her life was not easy, but it was familiar. She had learned to survive hardship with a straight face and tired hands. Years of labor had shaped her body and hardened her heart. Mary had 2 daughters. They were born from the same womb, raised under the same roof. Yet fate treated them like strangers. The first daughter was named Favor. Favor was everything Mary loved. From the day she was born, Mary held her differently, spoke to her softly, defended her fiercely. As Favor grew, Mary's affection only deepened. She excused her mistakes, ignored her laziness, and protected her from discipline. Favor was a teenager now, beautiful in a way that drew attention. Her skin was smooth, her hair always neatly braided, sometimes decorated with colorful extensions. She loved fine clothes and admired herself. Whenever she passed a mirror or saw her reflection in water, most woke up late, stretching lazily on her mat, reaching first for her phone before even greeting the day. While the village stirred with movement, Favor lay comfortably, scrolling through her phone, smiling at things that had nothing to do with her reality. She did not sweep. She did not cook. She did not go to the market. Her hands were soft, untouched by firewood, water pots, or heavy loads. And Mary made sure it stayed that way. Every morning, after bathing, Favor sat waiting while her mother prepared breakfast. Mary would call her gently, place the food before her, and watch her eat with satisfaction. In the afternoon, lunch was served. In the evening, dinner followed. Favor never asked where the food came from. She only ate. The second daughter was named Destiny. Destiny was younger, quieter, and carried a heaviness in her eyes that did not belong to her age. Life had introduced her to responsibility too early, and hardship had shaped her spirit before she understood why. While Favor slept, Destiny woke up, sometimes at 3 in the morning, when the moon still hung in the sky and the village was silent. Destiny would rise quietly from her mat. Her body would ache from the previous day. Fear of her mother's anger. Fear of punishment. She picked up the broom and swept the compound under moonlight. Dust rose softly into the cool night air as she worked in silence. She fetched water. She cleaned utensils. She prepared firewood. When the sky began to change colour, she was already tired. Inside the small kitchen area, Destiny cooked over a firewood stove. Smoke stung her eyes and clung to her clothes. She coughed sometimes but did not stop. Her hands moved quickly, practiced from repetition. Stirring pots, washing plates. Preparing food for a family that rarely thanked her. Mary watched closely. If Destiny slowed down, Mary's voice would rise. If Destiny made a mistake, correction came in harsh words and sometimes blows. Destiny learned to move fast, to stay quiet, to endure. After cooking, Destiny followed her mother to the market. She carried bowls of rice and beans, sometimes heavier than her own body. The sun beat down on her head as they walked the dusty road. Other children laughed along the way. But Destiny walked in silence, her mind already tired. At the market, Mary sold. Destiny served customers, collected bowls, cleaned spills, and stood for hours. When the day ended, they packed up and returned home. Mary rested. Destiny continued working. At night, when the compound finally became quiet and Favor lay comfortably scrolling through her phone, Destiny sat alone outside. Sometimes she stared at the sky. Sometimes tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She learned early that crying loudly brought trouble. She whispered prayers instead. She asked God questions she did not understand. Why am I treated this way? What did I do wrong? Am I not also a child? But answers did not come easily. One evening, after a long market day, Mary asked Destiny to go fetch water from the stream. The sun was already setting, painting the sky with deep orange and gold. Destiny picked up her clay pot and began the familiar walk. The path to the stream was quiet, surrounded by tall grasses and trees that whispered in the evening breeze. The water reflected the sky, calm and shining. As Destiny approached, she noticed someone standing by the stream. She slowed her steps. The woman before her was unlike anyone she had seen before. She wore elegant traditional clothing, rich in color and design. Coral beads rested around her neck. Her posture was upright, calm, and confident. Even without knowing who she was, Destiny felt respect rise within her. Destiny stopped, lowered her head slightly, and greeted her politely. "Good evening." The woman turned and smiled. It was a warm smile, gentle and observant. "Good evening," she replied. They looked at each other for a moment. The woman studied Destiny's posture, her humility, the way she carried herself. "Who are you?" the woman asked kindly. Destiny answered honestly. She spoke of her name. She spoke of her mother. She spoke of the market. She did not complain, but her life revealed itself in her words. The woman listened quiet. She then asked where Destiny lived and what her days were like. Destiny explained. Early mornings, late nights, work that never ended. Something softened in the woman's eyes. "I am the princess of this land," she said gently. "The king's daughter." Destiny's heart skipped. She quickly bowed lower, fear and respect mixing together. But the princess laughed softly and lifted her. "You greeted me before you knew who I was," the princess said. "That shows who you truly are." The princess told Destiny she admired her respect and humility. She said such qualities were rare. She said she wanted to be her friend. Destiny was confused. She did not know how to respond. "I am just a market girl," she said quietly. The princess smiled. "Then I will be your friend in the market world," she replied. They spoke a little longer by the stream as the sky darkened. When it was time to leave, the princess asked Destiny to show her where she lived one day. Destiny agreed, though she did not fully believe such kindness would last. But fate had already begun to turn, and that was how everything started. Days passed after the meeting at the stream, yet Destiny could not forget it. As she swept the compound before sunrise and stirred pots over firewood, her mind returned to the calm voice of the princess and the way she had looked at her. Not with pity, but with respect. Destiny wondered if it had been a dream. People like her did not usually cross paths with royalty. And even when they did, such moments disappeared as quickly as they came. But the princess did not forget. One afternoon, as the sun stood high and Destiny stood beside a hot fire frying meat to sell on the next market day. She sensed movement at the entrance of their compound. She turned, wiping sweat from her face, and froze. Standing there was the princess, dressed simply but still unmistakably royal, accompanied by a few attendants who remained respectfully at a distance. For a moment, Destiny could not move. Then she quickly dropped what she was doing, wiped her hands on her wrapper, and bowed respectfully. Her heart pounded with surprise and fear. Mary came out of the house when she heard voices. Her eyes widened when she saw the visitor. She immediately adjusted her wrapper and greeted her warmly, her voice suddenly soft and welcoming. Mary assumed, without question, that such a guest must have come for favor. She smiled broadly and said, almost proudly, that favor was inside. But the princess shook her head gently. "I came to see Destiny," she said. Mary's smile paused for a brief moment before returning, though something sharp passed through her eyes. She looked at Destiny, then back at the princess, forcing politeness where confusion and discomfort lived. Destiny stood quietly, her hands folded, her head slightly bowed. The princess explained that Destiny was her friend, and that she had only come to check on her. She praised Destiny's character, her respect, and her hard work. She said these things openly, in front of Mary and Favor. Favor stood nearby, holding her phone, listening without looking up. But every word entered her ears. Every compliment burned. The princess brought small gifts for Destiny, and then spoke privately with Mary. She asked for permission to invite Destiny to the palace someday. Mary agreed quickly, her voice sweet, her face warm, even as her heart twisted with something darker. After the princess left, the compound felt different. Destiny returned to her work, but her hands trembled slightly. Favor said nothing, but her silence was heavy. A few days later, Destiny was summoned to the palace. That morning, she bathed carefully, using what little water she had. She wore her cleanest dress, simple, faded, but neat. Her heart raced as she walked through the palace gates for the first time. The palace was vast, with tall carved pillars and wide open spaces. The air felt different, cooler, quieter, heavier with authority. Guards stood at attention. Servants moved silently. Destiny felt small. The princess welcomed her warmly and led her inside. Soon, Destiny stood before the king and queen. Her knees trembled as she bowed deeply, careful not to raise her eyes too quickly. The queen stepped forward first. She studied Destiny's face, her posture, her calm presence. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. The king followed, nodding slowly as the princess spoke highly of Destiny, recounting their meeting and her impressions. They asked Destiny questions. Where she was from, what she did, how she was raised. Destiny answered honestly, without exaggeration, without complaint. The king and queen were pleased. They told Destiny she was welcome in the palace anytime. The words sounded unreal in her ears. When it was time for her to leave, the queen instructed servants to bring gifts, beautiful dresses, fine fabrics, beads, and food. Destiny accepted them with trembling hands, thanking them repeatedly, her voice shaking with gratitude. When she returned home, her steps were light despite the weight she carried. She entered the compound and called out softly. Mary came out followed. Destiny laid the gifts down carefully, her eyes shining as she explained where they came from and who gave them. For the first time in a long while, she smiled freely. But that smile did not last. Favor stepped closer, touching one of the dresses. Her eyes scanned the fine fabric, the bright colors, the careful stitching. Something hardened in her face. She turned to Mary. "Mummy," she said, "I like these dresses." Me looked at gifts, then at tea Fova. She did not hesitate. Without asking Destiny, without explanation, she gathered the dresses and handed them to Favor. Destiny froze. For a moment, she could not speak. Then her eyes filled with tears. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking, "are you sure I am your child?" Mary turned away, ignoring her question. Favor smiled slightly, clutching the dresses, already imagining herself wearing them. That night, Destiny cried until sleep took her. At Isabelle's samfolding. The prince had noticed Destiny. At first, it was only curiosity. He saw the way she moved, the way she spoke, the way she listened. There was no pride in her, no hunger for attention. Her beauty was quiet, her presence calming. As days passed and Destiny visited the palace again, curiosity deepened into admiration. Admiration grew into something heavier, something that kept the prince awake at night. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, the prince finally spoke from his heart. He told Destiny how he felt, how her humility and strength had captured him. Destiny was shocked. She did not expect such words from a prince. But as she listened, her heart responded with joy she could not hide. She accepted his feelings with respect and happiness. When Destiny returned home and shared the news, she expected disbelief, maybe even joy. But instead, silence answered her. Mary's face darkened. Favor's eyes narrowed. No congratulations came. No smiles followed. Something dangerous began to grow in that house. Not long after, the prince and princess visited the market. They stood openly by Destiny's stall, greeting her warmly, drawing attention from villagers. People whispered. People watched. Mary stood nearby, her chest tight with jealousy and anger. She could not understand why Destiny had chosen Destiny instead of Favor. That night, as darkness settled over the village, Mary called Favor aside. Her voice was low, serious. She told her what to do. And Favor listened. From that night onward, something changed inside the house. The air grew heavy, not with words, but with intentions left unspoken. Mary moved about her chores with a hardened face, her thoughts turning over the same bitter questions again and again. Why Destiny? Why not Favor? Why should the child she never favored now rise above the one she loved most? Favor noticed the shift too. She did not ask questions. She understood her mother's silence. Envy settled into her heart, feeding on every memory of Destiny's smile, every mention of the palace, every whispered admiration from villagers. Sunday came quietly. That morning, Destiny woke with a different kind of excitement. She prepared herself carefully, washing her face, arranging her simple braids, choosing a clean dress. She was going to the palace again. The thought filled her with warmth and anticipation. As she stepped out of the room, she saw Favor standing there, unusually calm. "I want to go with you today," Favor said. Destiny was surprised. She searched her sister's face, hoping to see sincerity. For a moment, she did. Or maybe she wanted to. Her heart lifted. Of course, Destiny replied softly. "We can go together." She believed this was the beginning of something new. A chance for sisterhood. A chance for healing. They set out together, walking the familiar path toward the palace. Destiny spoke along the way, explaining what she loved about the palace, how kind the princess was, how welcoming the king and queen had been. Favor listened quietly, nodding, hiding her thoughts behind a carefully controlled expression. At the palace gates, guards greeted Destiny respectfully. Favor watched closely, taking everything in. The grand walls, the shining floors, the calm authority that filled the air. This was a world she had never known. And her heart raced not with wonder, but with desire. Inside, Destiny was welcomed warmly. The princess embraced her. The prince smiled, his eyes lighting up at the sight of her. Destiny's face glowed with happiness. As Destiny followed the prince into the palace courtyard, laughing softly as he spoke, Favor slowed her steps. She looked around, ensuring no one was watching. Then, quietly, she turned away from them. She moved through corridors she had never seen before, her footsteps cautious. Servants passed by, too busy to notice her. She followed her mother's instructions closely, her heart pounding louder with each step. At last, she reached the king's private chamber. She hesitated at the door, her hand shaking. But the image of Destiny's joy hardened her resolve. She slipped inside. The room was rich with symbols of authority. Gold ornaments rested carefully on shelves. Decorative chests stood against the walls. Favor's breath caught as she reached out, touching what she had never touched before. She took the gold. Her hands trembled as she hid it inside Destiny's bag, which had been left nearby earlier. She arranged it carefully, making sure it was hidden, then stepped back, her chest heaving with fear and excitement. When she rejoined Destiny later, her face was calm again. Destiny noticed nothing. The day passed peacefully. Laughter echoed through the palace courtyard. The prince and Destiny spoke of simple dreams, of kindness, of a future that felt possible. As evening fell, the atmosphere shifted. A servant rushed into the palace, his face pale. Whispers followed. Confusion spread. The king's gold was missing. Guards searched the palace. Servants were questioned. Tension filled the air. Soon, Destiny and Favor were summoned. They stood before the king in the great hall. Destiny's heart pounded as she tried to understand what was happening. The king's face was stern, his voice firm as he asked if they knew anything about the missing gold. Before Destiny could speak, Favor stepped forward. She pointed at Destiny. She said she had seen Destiny enter the king's private chamber. She said Destiny had come out holding something. She said she had watched Destiny place something inside her bag. Destiny stared at her in disbelief. Tears filled her eyes as she spoke, her voice shaking. She denied everything. She said she had been with the prince the entire time. She begged the king to believe her. Favor called her a liar. The king ordered the guards to search Destiny's bag. Destiny's knees weakened as the bag was opened. The gold lay inside. The hall erupted in gasps. Destiny collapsed, crying uncontrollably. She shook her head again and again, swearing she knew nothing about the gold. She said she had never stolen anything in her life. She pleaded for her mother to speak the truth on her behalf. Mary was called before the king. She stood stiffly, her eyes fixed on the ground. When the king asked her about Destiny's character, she did not hesitate. She said Destiny had been stealing her money at home. Those words cut deeper than any blade. The prince stepped forward, his voice raised in protest. He spoke of Destiny's honesty, her integrity, her kindness. But the king silenced him. A family does not lie against their own blood, the king sighed. The judgment was made. Destiny was declared guilty. The punishment was exile. She was ordered to leave the village and never return. Guards escorted her away as she cried, begging, calling out to her mother. Woher ist wissen? But no one did. Destiny walked away from the palace with her head bowed and her heart shattered. The guards escorted her beyond the village paths, past places she had known all her life, toward a road that led into deep wilderness. Each step felt heavier than the last. The voices of the village faded behind her, replaced by the sound of wind brushing against trees. She did not understand how truth could fail so completely. She thought of the prince. She thought of the princess. She thought of the moments of kindness that had felt like light after years of darkness. And now she was being sent away like a criminal, accused of a crime she did not commit, betrayed by the very people who should have protected her. Tears streamed down her face as she walked. Her feet ached. Her throat was dry. Her body was weak, but the pain in her heart was worse. The forest ahead looked endless, silent, and dangerous. She had heard stories of wild animals and people who never returned. As she walked deeper, fear wrapped around her like a shadow. Suddenly, a voice stopped her. "Where are you going, my child?" Destiny froze. She turned slowly and saw an elderly woman standing by the path. The woman's back was slightly bent with age, but her eyes were sharp and calm. She wore earth-colored garments and beads. That spoke of tradition and spiritual authority. There was something about her presence that quieted Destiny's fear, even before she spoke again. "Do you know where this path leads?" the old woman asked gently. Destiny's knees gave way. She fell to the ground and wept openly, no longer able to hold her pain inside. Between tears, she told the woman everything. She spoke of her mother's favoritism, her sister's jealousy, the palace, the stolen gold, the false accusation, and the sentence of exile. The old woman listened without interrupting. When Destiny finished, she helped her up and led her to a small hut hidden among the trees. She gave Destiny food and water. And, for the first time in days, Destiny felt warmth and safety. After Destiny had eaten, the old woman looked at her closely. "Tell me the truth," she said. "Did you take the gold?" Destiny lifted her face, her eyes steady despite the tears. "I swear with my life," she said, "I did not take it." The old woman nodded slowly. She stepped aside and performed a quiet spiritual consultation, calling on higher wisdom to reveal the truth. When she returned, her face was firm. "You are innocent," she said. The next morning, the old woman told Destiny to follow her back to the village. Destiny was afraid, but the woman assured her that truth was stronger than lies. When they arrived at the palace, guards rushed forward. Recognizing Destiny immediately, the king ordered her seized. Before the guards could act, the old woman raised her staff and spoke with a voice that echoed through the palace courtyard. "This girl is innocent." The palace fell silent. The old woman demanded that Destiny's mother and sister be brought before the king. When Mary and Favor arrived and saw Destiny standing alive before them, shock drained the color from their faces. The old woman gave them a final warning. "Speak the truth," she said, "or face consequences greater than shame." Favor began to tremble. Tears spilled from her eyes as guilt finally broke her strength. She confessed everything. She admitted that she had stolen the gold. She admitted that her mother had instructed her to do so. She tried to shift blame, saying she was only obeying her mother. Mary stood frozen, exposed by her own actions. The king's face darkened with anger and regret. He turned to Destiny, shame heavy in his eyes, and apologized publicly for believing lies over truth. Then he turned to Mary and Favor. They were ordered to leave the village before the next sunrise, never to return. They fell to their knees, crying, begging Destiny for forgiveness. Mary pleaded as a mother. Favor cried as a sister. Destiny stood quietly. After everything she had suffered, she did not curse them. She did not rejoice in their punishment. She simply looked at them with calm eyes, forgiveness resting silently on her face. The prince stepped forward and took Destiny's hand. In time, Destiny and the prince were married in a royal ceremony filled with music, color, and joy. Destiny became queen, not by force or ambition, but by character and endurance. 1 year later, the palace echoed with the laughter of twins. Destiny held her children close, her heart finally full. The pain of her past had shaped her strength, and her suffering had turned into legacy. Enzo, the girl who once swept compounds at dawn, became a queen by nightfall of Destiny. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like, share, and leave a comment below to tell us what you learned from Destiny's journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. Thank you so much for watching, and may truth always find its way in your life.